Hello, you fucks. Welcome to John Solo's Beer Brigade. I'm John Solo. You are not, and today is a big day. You know, I'm super excited about this, but before we get in, I got to tell you what's happening through the course of this week. And, like, everything has changed once again. It seems like every time I do one of these videos, every single time I have to change everything, change the world. That's what we do. But anyways, we just finished up Patricia Logan's True Order. That's the name of that book. It's the book 4 of the Prosper Woods Chronicle series. Just finished that up. I just finished the post. I just submitted to ACX. So if the gods are kind to us, it should be out, I would imagine, I don't know, this weekend or somewhere in there. We're moving on to Tal Bauer's Western. And that's starting tomorrow. I'm going to be in Discord streaming that probably from noon to 5 or 1 to 5, somewhere in that range. I have it on good authority. No presidents were killed in the making of this particular book. So there's that. Apparently there's also not a bunch of foreign words. So I didn't have to hire a researcher for this one, which is fantastic. Past that, we also have tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Andrew Gray's coming on the show, and we're doing another duet reading. This is going to be the last of our classic style duet readings, where Andrew Gray comes in and does his children's voices and all that fun shit. After that, hopefully we're going to be switching over to the Mad Libs version of the duet reads, coming up the following week with Victoria Sue. And we're going to try that out for a while and see how that works. Past that, we're probably going to have a story time that's going to be popped up in the group on Wednesday. That's going to be from Tal Bauer's book. And then, of course, Sunday, we got the morning coffee show. So, anyways, I think that's it. I guess I'll do the rest of this with Nev here. Without any more from me, well, of course, I'm going to keep on talking. I give you Neve Wilder. Hello, Neve. How are you? Am I saying that right? Is it Neve or Neve? Because I fuck it up every time.
You got it.
Neve? Excellent. Tracy yelled at me because I told everybody about the show, and I was like, and we're having Neve Wilder. Well, because Neve is it's a fancy-ass preamp, and I'm an audio engineer, and it's a preamp. So I saw it, and I thought, but I'm an idiot. Yeah, anyways. So look at that. The flip over worked perfectly. It's pretty fucking awesome. Yeah, I know. Nothing's fucked up yet. It's amazing. So before we get into talking about you and your pretty hair and all that, I have to tell you, I have had the biggest raging zit on my face all week long, and I'm sorry you have to look at it.
I can't see it. Where is it?
Good. Thank God. Maybe I should take you back to the black screen just so you don't have to. It's horrible, man. It's like, you ever have one of those where you just, as soon as you start talking to somebody, you want to be like, stop looking at my zit. It's one of those. So I'm sorry. It is what it is. So we had the opportunity to meet at GRO.
Yes.
And I remember chatting. It was late in the evening, wasn't it? We were like both in the lobby.
It was at the last like party thing. I think the last night party, maybe, like, you know.
I was freaking toast. I was tired. What I associate in my head with you is like, oh, she's so nice, and I can't even speak at this point. That's what I remember about the conversation. But yeah, you were super nice, super gracious, and of course I mentioned the show because that's what I do, and you said you would be nice enough to come on, and I think Trace reached out to you, which is awesome. So I have never recorded one of your books. Tell me what you do.
I write romance.
That's awesome.
In varying heat levels and tropes and stuff like that. Probably my most well-known series is the extracurricular activities series, which begins with Want Me, which is basically just one big, long collection of erotica scenes.
Awesome. All right, you're going to fit right in here. If you add like the word dragon in front of it, you'll get like a perfect 10. But I don't think they love the dragons too.
I haven't gotten to dragons yet, but maybe someday.
How did you get into this? Were you reading this prior to jumping into it?
I was. I feel like I was a little bit late to the game in that I didn't even realize this genre existed until 2015. I had a friend who was like, have you ever read any romance? And I said, no. I didn't really even read romance. I mostly read women's fiction, what they call women's fiction, such a weird term, and literary fiction. Women's fiction.
Now, is that, are you talking romance, obviously, but I mean, that's where it's the man and the woman. That's the women's fiction, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, women's fiction is more like, I'm trying to think of a good example. and I'm going to fail. But it's not romance. It's not like male female romance. It's more like just woman focused. It's geared towards women. I would say like The Devil Wears Prada would be like a women's fiction. Maybe, I don't know.
Somebody in the crowd
Maybe
said
I might have painted myself in the corner.
Somebody in the crowd said chick lit.
Yeah, chick lit, which is just like a weird. I mean, there's not like a men's lit. Like it's men's lit, but whatever.
Yeah. We eat steaks. That's what we do. We're men. Well, so you discovered the MM romance because one of your friends said, "Have you ever read this before?" You picked up the first book. What was your first impression? What was your thought?
I loved it. I had never been exposed really to any sort of MM romance. It was always the hetero romance, and I wasn't really that interested in male-female romance for whatever reason. For a lot of reasons that other women have issues with it, I had trouble identifying with it, and so. The first book I read was Joey W. Hill's Rough Canvas. It was like the only one I could find. And so I started with that. And then Amazon slowly started feeding me, populating my book suggestions with more gay romance. And I just kind of dived right in. I think the second book I read was Riley Hart's Crossroads. And I was like, ooh, I like this, So I just kept going. And I was a voracious reader, and so I just kept reading. And I wouldn't say I stopped reading everything else. I still read outside the genre occasionally, but for the most part, primarily read in our genre now, or like post-apocalyptic fiction, which is some weird reader kink of mine.
The dystopian thing.
Yeah.
I actually kind of get into that myself. I have it on good authority that women don't like, some women like it obviously, but a lot of women don't like the male-female romance stuff because of the pussy. That's what they've told me. They won't let me say the word, okay? So I have to say it weird. They get all freaked out. People, they're like, ew, so I got to say the pussy. That's how we say it here.
This is very fancy sounding now.
It kind of sounds, that's the only, I like how you say it better than me. I got to sample that.
What? No, God, no, please.
I have
You're
these
like random sound bites.
I have a whole soundbite file. You are now going to be in it. It's going to be fantastic.
Oh, man.
We do this thing in Discord where people get levels when they're watching, and we celebrate the levels. Congratulations, you've got the level 25, and I do a whole spiel, and at the end of it, Tracy jumps in and says, pussy. It's fantastic. So,
That's awesome.
Yeah, so now we could have you saying it. It's going to be fantastic.
Hey, okay, I could approve that. I could be down with that.
I love the dystopian stuff. I haven't gotten a chance to do as much of it as I would like in my career, but that's where I gravitated to read. I like sci-fi. I love sci-fi. I love fantasy. But I love the urban fantasy, which a lot of times leads into the dystopian whole deal. It's fantastic. So have you written any of that? Is that something you're getting into?
No, I've had this idea kind of marinating in the back of my mind for years, and it's one of those things that still feels kind of like partially baked. But whenever I feel like I have nailed down the story or the vibe, I would definitely write it. I've always wanted to write something post-apocalyptic. Why is it hard to say?
Words are hard. Words are very. I'm not very good at it.
Apocalyptic. Yeah. I'm not good at speaking them. Sometimes I can write them.
Well, writers do that too. They'll write an entire book and they'll never say anything out loud, and then they put it into our hands. They're like, "Here you go, narrator, say my words." You need to. Marie Sexton. Are you familiar with her? She's an author in the genre. So, Song of Oeston.
Ooh, okay.
Very dystopian. You will love it. It's fantastic.
I'm writing this down.
She herself, and she's one of my favorites, and she herself said that it was her favorite that she'd ever written. And when an author says that, you kind of got to pay attention,
Yeah.
But by far, I've read all of her shit. It's the best.
Did you read Trailer Trash?
Yeah, I
like the 80s, like 80s. I love that because it's like a throwback to the 80s. Like revisiting childhood. That was awesome. So I need to read this one.
It kind of Trailer Trash kind of felt like a Goonies perfect. God, I'm no good with TV shows. There was a Netflix thing. Yeah, anyways, it had that feel to it. It was fantastic. And yeah, I got to record that one. That was years and years and years ago.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, don't listen to it. I did a horrible job.
Oh, really?
But,
okay, now I'm going to go purchase it immediately.
That's exactly what happens whenever I say that. So somebody, I'm keeping track of the comments here. Somebody asked, how would you describe yours and Onley's Bad Habits series?
Ooh, like elevator pitch. Anti-heroes falling in love. Morally gray people falling in love, which, you know, she has, I wouldn't say it's a similar series because she has her other series, Necessary Evils, which is basically psychopaths falling in love. And so Bad Habit series, or Wages of Sin, is more like assassins and morally gray people falling in love.
I love the morally gray thing.
Me
I love
too.
it when the characters
Sucker.
are not perfect. Yeah. It's absolutely awesome. I've got other things to ask you, but is that a chalkboard on your entire wall behind you? Because that is fantastic.
Yes, it is. This entire wall of a chalkboard painting. You can see my kids have gotten to it. There we go. That's how you know. So they come in. If I need to distract them for a few minutes, I'll give them a piece of chalk and say, have at it.
Dude,
Unfortunately...
my wife would eat that up. She'd love that. We have the chalkboard paint on one of our doors. It's on our sun porch. It's like access to the outside, and she like writes notes on it, like, this year I'm going to do this garden. She sounds just like that. And she'll like write it all down. But you got an entire fucking wall, so you can doodle it any time. How old are your kids?
Well. They're 4 and 8.
So do you sleep? Or?
I actually do now, but I don't really get a lot else done during the waking hours. I'm kidding. I mean, they're at school and in like preschool now, so I do have more time. But I used to kind of have to fight for time to write, so it's nice to have daytime now. Yeah.
So you're a full-time writer. Are you not working a day job, or are you?
I don't work a day job anymore. Kind of managing our household and writing on top of that is enough.
It's a full-time fucking job. I'm a bit older than you, and I started way early. My son is 23.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But I started, and he was born when I was 19, so we started like way early on. And I remember the first year or so, I used to go to work to sleep. Like I would go and just like nap before my shift. That's what I would do. And then after that, it calmed down for a little bit until he hit about 12. So you've got a few years right now that perfect window, you know?
Yep.
A boy and girl, or all girls, or all boys?
So I have our 8-year-old is a girl, and then we have the 4-year-olds. They're twins, actually, a boy and a girl.
They're 4 and they're 8, but they're. I'm not very good at math, but.
No, so twin 4-year-olds, a boy and a girl.
Oh, okay.
Twin 4-year-olds.
I was like, you have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, and they're twins. I don't.
See, science fiction, man. We're living it.
Just one brood a little longer. That's all.
Stayed in there extra 4 years. It's very awkward.
Talk about dystopian. Yeah. That had to have been as awkward as Mary explaining it to Joseph. So, all right, now I understand. So, wow, you are busy. That many children. Are you Catholic? Is that why you had that many? Or?
Yeah. No, it's just, like I said, science, man. We wanted another kid. We wanted another child, and it was not happening for us. So we used some scientific assistance and basically got a buy one, get one free on the twins. So,
yeah, that happened to my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law. Couldn't have children, and so they kept on going, and then it worked, and then it like really worked, and then they were like rabbits, and they were just popping out.
Well, we closed up shop shortly after that. That was we're good after twins.
That's exactly what I did. I don't have the same stuff, but it happened once, and I was like, fool me once, this is not happening again. So we got that thing taken care of. It's done. By the way, that's one of the best pickup lines I've ever heard in my life. I've got a buddy that's a DJ. This is completely off subject.
Okay, I'm invested now. Where are we going with this?
You're gonna love this. We've got a buddy that's a DJ, and he's a pretty good-looking guy. And he's DJing one night, and a chick comes up to him. It's the 2 o'clock in the morning chick. You know those. That's the like all other things have failed for her. She's now standing in front of you. This is how it's going down. And her pickup line is, my tubes are tied and I'll be outside in 10 minutes. That was her pickup line.
Is that for real? I mean,
totally.
To be fair, it probably did work, because I feel like that would work for many men.
You know it did. Men are whores. They don't need like a reason. They just need like a place. That's the way they work. Now, I am not that way anymore. But yeah, my buddy was in his 20s at the time, and he's DJing. That's what it's the 2 o'clock in the morning crowd. It's fun for me now. I run sound for a band on the weekends and that sort of thing, and I'm also sober. I've been sober for a number of years, and so I'm not a whore anymore. It's really fun for me to watch the 2 o'clock in the morning crowd as I'm packing up my PA system, stone cold sober, and just watching them. And they're always the same people, just different names and faces, but the same people. You got like the one that wants to fight because somebody looked at his girlfriend. Nobody looked at his fucking girlfriend. You've got the woman that is convinced that she needs at least 2 more shots, and she's the one that will go behind the bar to get it. Like, the bartenders are angry and mad, and there's that. They're always the same faces. It's like that Billy Joel Piano Man song all over again.
Yeah.
So I was looking through your catalog, and it looks like you've worked with Kurt Graves and his new guy, Silas.
Yes.
Did you do your last book?
Yeah, they did they did Show Me. And so that was kind of cool to have dual narrators for the first time.
What do you think of that? Are you an audiobook fan? Do you listen to these at all?
This is going to be like blasphemy, but I am not. I really don't, and there are a couple reasons for that. One is that, like, I rarely am ever just, if I'm sitting down, usually I'm writing, and I can't listen to anything when I write, much less someone reading something. And B, I'm really impatient. So like when I am reading, I just like to go at my own speed, and I know you can speed it up. You can speed the narration up, but I don't know. I have like 12 Audible credits right now, and I'm like, God, I probably need to cancel that because I just never do it. I don't know. Maybe later, like when I'm on the road, I will listen to audio, like audiobooks.
I'm trying to like give you a deep stare so you get all nervous when you're saying you don't listen to audiobooks. That's what I'm trying to do.
I feel bad.
Don't do.
So I listen to your snippets because I'm like, I want to, I need to know what I'm getting into here.
Like, who is this guy?
Of.
A lot of authors don't. In fact, I have many clients that have never listened to an audiobook in their lives. They won't listen to theirs. They won't listen to anybody's. This is not their thing. So don't feel bad. I didn't. Now, I'd listened to audiobooks before I got into audiobook narration, but I didn't really care about them one way or the other until I got into audiobook narration. Now, just given the way I work and what I do, if I do get to consume a book, that's the only way I get to consume it. I do it while I'm driving. So it's like a multitasking thing. But also, I never paid any attention to narrators or anything prior to being a narrator myself. I noticed if they sucked. I didn't notice if they were good. It was was kind of apathetic about the entire thing. So don't feel bad. You are certainly not the only one. Have you listened to one of yours? Have you probably like 5 or 10 minutes, but you didn't go like the whole thing?
I have never listened to. I don't think I've ever listened to one of mine all the way through, like the finished product. There have been times when I've listened to different chapters just to sort of get a feel for the voice and the vibe. But I've never, and I know some authors are weird about listening to their own sex scenes. That doesn't really bother me. It's just, again, like, I just want to make sure it sounds good, and then I'm like, good. I trust the narrator. I tend to like trust the narrator to know what they're doing and to like make it sound really good.
Yeah, fuck yeah, you hire a pro, and that's what you get. Well, and looking at the people you've hired, too, you've hired pros. There's no doubt about it. I don't think you got a thing to worry about. I was going to ask you about the Silas dude, because he was very cool. He came up to the room with, he came up to my hotel room. He came up with, yeah, there wasn't much to him and Kurt Graves, so it was like a threesome going on. But they came up and chatted for a minute, and he had a great voice. And I was all excited. I saw him on your list. And I was like, oh, look at that. He's working. But yeah, if you don't care about audiobooks, you haven't fucking heard him, so it doesn't matter.
I've heard him. I listened to his portion of Show Me, and he's very cool. I mean, so I got to meet him at GRL, and we went out. A bunch of us went out to dinner one night. Unfortunately, they were sitting like at the other end of the table. It was a big crowd, and so I didn't get to talk to him as much. But when I met him, he seemed really awesome. You've got like I have this. What
was that the night that Kirk got drunk? Because I had heard tell about that night.
Maybe, but if he did, he wasn't acting that super drunk when we were together.
One of these days, I'm going to get somebody to give me the dirt on that night. But anyways, please go ahead.
Well, I want to hear the dirt too, because I'm like, I love Kurt. But yeah, you have this picture stuck in my head now of like a narrator on narrator romance. Like, can you imagine I mean, that would be really good voices, really good vocals if two narrators going at it. God, one of
my friends, an author in the crowd, Jane Stoff, wrote a fan fiction about me and Nick J. Russo.
I love Nick.
Yeah, me too. He's a good buddy. And the fan fiction is hilarious. It's kind of creepy in a way, but to celebrate, I forget why we did it, about a year and a half ago. Nick and I both did a live reading of, it was a short, it was a novella, like 5 or 10K or something. Did a live reading on Facebook Live for it, and it was fucking hilarious. But you see, Nick and I have a history. We've known each other for years and years and years, and we've actually done a couple duet narration, which is a little bit different. That's where instead of having like one guy read a chapter and then another guy read a chapter, we have one guy reading a chapter, but then anytime the other guy's voice comes in, he'll just be there and do that line inside that chapter.
That's cool too.
It's difficult to put together.
You would think so.
Yeah, it's really, so we don't do that many of them because they're so costly, but we tried it because we'd never done it before, and Nick used to work for me. He would come into my studio. So we did it like in my little booth here. And we were like standing really close, and we're both like totally not gay. Totally not. I swear to fucking God, don't even get it in your head. But we're like, I was trying to like make him giggle, like making real good eye contact with him the whole time, and I do my sexy lines, and it's kind of hot in here. I didn't have the air conditioning at the time, so we're like all sweaty and shit. And I'm not gay. I swear to. I mean,
you keep saying. Because you're about to tell me. What are you about to tell me? Because you keep adding that in there.
All right, I sucked his dick, but I'm not gay.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah. You suck one guy's dick, and what? Now, it was a lot of fun. I wish I got to do those more. So when you're writing, are you still writing with your writing partner, or are you just kind of all solo now doing it?
I'm always pretty much all over the place. Only and I, so we did those 3 books together. We made. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. We may do more. I don't know. I don't want to say. My schedule's so wacky this year. Let me just say this. We really enjoy writing together, and she really fills in the places like where I feel weak in terms of writing or whatever, and we're really good at keeping each other motivated. She is a really prolific, like, fast writer, and she's just a really good writer. And so writing with her, I love it because she helps me like knock shit out. I mean, we wrote our Wages of Sin series books pretty like quicker than I usually write my books, because I'm kind of a dawdler otherwise. I'll fiddle with things and like erase it and start over and be like and she's more of like, let's just do this. And so she would have her chapter done, and like I'd be like, well, when are you gonna have your chapter? And she's like, well, check back in 3 hours. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, really? Okay, I'm like a day and like I need a day and a half. And yeah, she would knock it out, like just sit down and do it. I'm like, how do you do that? I hate you, but I love you. And there is something about collaborative writing that is just, it's the energy, like an energy exchange, and just, like we would plot a little bit. We kind of knew the big things that we needed to happen, but otherwise, I never knew I was going to get in my chapter, and that's really exciting to open up a chapter and be like, ooh, that's good, or be like, what the fuck did you just leave me with? How am I supposed to, like, what am I supposed to do now? So it was great. So I really like that, and so I think that we'll we like writing together, so I can imagine that we would probably find some other things to write together in the future. And I'm open to other collaborations in the future too. I just really like that process. But you also have to find someone. I don't think I'd ever feel comfortable just talking to someone I don't know very well and being like, can we write a book? You got to have some sort of rapport with them. Otherwise, because I'm kind of weird about how I write things, and I need to feel comfortable when they see this garbage that I'm going to send over to them, and even to like trust them that like they know that I'm going to go back later and make it prettier. Because I don't write. I'm one of those people that writes like shit drafts. Like I will write just a really shitty first draft just to make sure that I kind of know what I'm doing or where I'm going, and then I'll go back and try to make it look better. Try to grammar it up a little bit.
I absolutely love that you're honest enough to say that. I've had, and this happens in the narration world too. Excuse me, I've got some cum in my throat. This happens in the narration world too, where we will put out a product, right? And the first recording of a product it's kind of disgusting. The human body makes weird sounds. It really does. There's like horrible, nasty, just like that kind of shit going on.
Noises.
Yeah, and your stomach growl, and it happens. So you get really nervous about somebody else hearing that kind of thing. You don't want. I imagine you probably don't want people to hear your intestines.
No.
And so when you work for a publishing company, that sort of thing, they like to have a raw copy of your recording. You can't send them a processing. You got to send it raw. Every single narrator I've ever talked to gets really fucking nervous about that. They're like, well, I mean, how raw? I mean, I can still go through and clean out all the stomach noises, right? And most of the publishers will say, no, send us raw. We've heard it before. It has to feel the same way as an author. You basically vomit it onto your page for, a half hour, 45, I don't know how long your sprints are. And then you're going to trust somebody enough to, hey, here's my blemished heart. Here you go. Try not to make fun of it. I imagine it's got to feel something like that.
It does.
And the trust that's involved. How long have you two been working together?
We've been talking just as friends probably for a year or so before we ever started writing together. And we started writing together during the pandemic, kind of in the thick of the pandemic. We were both trying to work on other stuff. I was like trying to write a pretty happy, fluffy book, and it just wasn't happening. And I didn't want to write anything, basically. So I messaged her, or maybe she messaged me. I don't know. Somehow we got in this conversation like, what if we just try to write together? And if it's absolute garbage, like fine, whatever, we'll never tell anyone. But what if we just try to write something for fun? We didn't even talk about publishing it immediately. We just sort of were like, okay, what do we want to write about? Like what gets us excited? And we started talking about, you got me all like hyper aware of mouth noises now, because I'm like, oh, is everyone listening to my mouth noises?
Yes, they are. In fact, I just cleared my throat thinking that I hit my mute button, so don't feel bad at all.
Okay. Anyway, so we discussed a lot of different things, but we kept coming back to assassins and gray characters. Something just completely that we could kind of go more balls to the wall with, in terms of, because that's not what I usually write, but it's stuff that I love to read. But my brand is more, I think when most people think of me, they probably think of, new adult, college, super high heat. But we both also like really high heat. So that series is very high heat, but also a little bit darker and grittier. And that's just what we wanted to write at the time. So we did. And it worked. It worked swimmingly.
Well, there's nothing wrong with, for one, I hear that some of the people like to read the sex scenes. I
heard that.
They seem to enjoy that.
Who knew?
On top of that, the darker side, assassins, that sort of thing. See, now you're talking my language. That's fun shit to get into. It sounds to me like your brand is typically internal conflict. That's kind of what's happening. There's not a lot of external, and you got into a book with a lot of external conflict.
Exactly. And that's what Only is really good at. So I am not, yeah, I'm more of like a character, internal struggle, stuff like that. And I always feel like I'm not as strong at external plot, but I love that. And Only is really good at that. So in writing with someone that thinks that way was really helpful in kind of shifting my brain to think that way. And I think that's part of the reason we wrote it so quickly. When you're not writing characters with these deep internal struggles and they're more that they're just sort of caught in this situation, you can fly through it a little faster.
I think hey, look, my mute button actually worked that time. Wow. I think the external conflict for me as a narrator is incredibly enjoyable. I absolutely fucking love it. But if you get an author that can really get inside of a character's head and the character is imperfect, I will eat that shit up like ice cream. Mm-hmm. It is so fucking good. Marie's a great example of that, where halfway through, you know how the character is going to react in any given situation before it's actually written down on the page. Like, you know, the surprise at that point has to be something external happening, because there's nothing that's going to surprise you about what the character actually does. You know them so well. It's intimate. It's like a lover. Not that 2 a.m. chick. I'm talking about a lover. It makes all the difference. You sound like somebody I'd like to read, which is saying a lot, because at this point it feels like I've read it all, you know? It really does. What's your writing process like during the day? You have 3 children, and you probably spend 4 or 5 hours in the gym a day, so I'm sure you're getting up at 5 a.m. and you got the whole schedule worked out, or how's it work?
No, I get up around a little before 7, you know, got to do all the kids stuff, get them off to school, and then I come back. My schedule is a little off right now, and it has been so for a few months, but back in the days of Wine and Roses or whatever, when I was really adhering to stuff, I would come back and write for probably an hour before I take a break and do other stuff. I am like I try to exercise every day, not out of really a sense of vanity, but because it's my Prozac. Basically, it's my mood adjuster. So I try not to miss a workout, and it just clears my head, keeps everything running on a fairly even keel. And then I would usually do admin stuff. I'd write another session mid-afternoon, and then another late afternoon, and then sometimes a nighttime session. Aiming for anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 words a day. 2,000 words a day is really good for me, and that's about like what I can put out and not feel like it's just cardboard that I'm just spewing. Just for me, I'm just a slow thinker. I just am, and I've accepted that part of my process.
I don't think 2,000 words a day. I know I'm friends with a lot of authors. I don't think it's a bad day at all. I know people that are putting out 5,000 words a day and 10,000 words a day, and some of them I know. I can think of one right now that puts out 5,000 to 10,000 words a day and hasn't gone batshit crazy. The rest of them I see burnout, which it happens in my world too. I'll try and record a certain amount of finished hours a day, and pretty soon I just hit a wall and I fucking burn out, and and then I'm a wreck. Because what we do is creative work, and what we do requires you to dump your heart out on a plate. If you're not doing that, I don't think you're doing it right. You said a great term, and I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about it. You said putting out cardboard. What do you do in that situation? I mean, we call it the muse. You know, you show up, you're waiting on the muse to happen. What do you do when it's just not shaking out?
It sucks. It's the worst feeling, because at least for me, and I imagine other writers too, you know when you're putting out, when you're like not hitting the right tone or vibe or whatever, and it's absolutely maddening, because sometimes there's just fucking nothing for it. There's just nothing for it, and you have to step away. And there have been times too when I had a deadline that was not my own, but for a project, and it's painful to just feel like you're churning out something that's not your best product. And I'll just be flat out. I mean, I've had to do that before, but then fortunately I'm a person that goes back over stuff, and so once I had gotten like the base level product, I could go back through and have people read it and try to kind of figure out how do I make this better and not suck as much. And that's kind of my, I always think, I'm like, I'm not a great writer, but what I'm decent at is persistence and like trying to tweak and edit the finished product and make it better. I'm not someone that just like sits down and writes something that I think super awesome and cool. I put a lot of work into it, which makes me think of when we were talking about imperfect characters and those morally gray characters. I love those because when you think about it, those are so hard to build as an author. You have to find that balance of making them sympathetic to the reader or trying to inspire sympathy from the reader while also making them imperfect. It's just such a weird way to try to find balance, because you know this character, but you're like, God, is he too much of an asshole? Like, what can I do to give him, to make readers sympathetic? It's so weird to try to like structure that and build that from the ground up, but when it works, it's awesome. Like you said, when you read these imperfect characters that just reach out and grab you, I think there's a lot of work from the author that went into like being able to capture it. It's so much easier to just make perfect, la la la, Mary Sue type characters. They're archetypes, but an imperfect character is not an archetype. They can't be. You have to give them individual weaknesses, and then, but you also have to not go too far unless you're going over into really dark romance, and even then, you still have to make the reader identify or relate or stay invested in someone long enough. I mean, again, a great example is the Only Necessary Evil series, Psychopaths. Like, you look on how are you going to make a psychopath sympathetic? And yet, she does, because that's what she excels at. I feel like maybe you should have her on, because I feel like I really love that series. I feel like I've plugged her series now. It's a great series, though.
Actually, who you're describing sounds very familiar to me. I'm wondering if I've worked for them before. I could listen to you talk about this all fucking day long. As an actor, getting into a character's role, I see the stereotypes a fucking mile away, and it's fine. They have to be written. Sometimes it's got to happen. Okay, we know. We have jokes in my group about the sassy omega and basically the stereotypes that fall into place in some stories. But man, if you give me a couple cracks in their armor, if you give me a couple pieces of flaws, something that I can lean into. And the trick of it, just exactly like you said, for me too, is making them not too much of an asshole. And also, not too weak. There's that little balancing line in the middle.
Yep.
Now, I do that by imagining a scenario in my head to create an emotion that I want to have coming into a scene, and then knowing my character relations in a scene, so I'm reacting accordingly. You do it in a much harder method. It's something I totally respect, and I talk to my good friends that are writers about this all the time. I get to take what you do and activate my own creative process on it. I get to build after the fact. You got to sit down in the morning with absolutely fucking nothing in front of you, a blank page, and create that out of thin air. It's totally impressive to me. I don't know how you do it, but it's absolutely amazing to me. Now, the muse, I've talked to a lot of people about this, and it's fascinating. My theory is this: I show up every day, most every day, let's be honest, and I show up, I'm present, I work on my craft, and I'm going to work from this time to this time every day, and I'm going to do my fucking job. And let's hope the muse shows up. It'd be awful fucking nice if magic happens. And if I just do that consistently every day, not only do I get better at my craft, so I know my technique and I don't have to think about that, but also occasionally the magic does happen. But for me, there are periods, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, somewhere in there, where it just feels dry. I'm showing up, motherfucker. I'm showing up. I'm doing my job. Where are you at, Muse? Where are you at? Nothing's quite striking me. Have you run into that scenario? Have you run into it recently?
Yeah, I run into it fairly frequently, and definitely recently. I feel behind with the solo books. I really wanted to have the third book in my rhythm series done by now, and it's just moving slower. There's a lot going on at home, and that's the weird thing about writing. Like, you are, in some respects, you do have to sit down and show up and do the work, and sometimes you just have to freaking start typing. But you're also kind of tethered to this creative aspect that can be sucked away by almost anything. I mean, I was thinking about this before we started this. I was thinking about the creative process in terms of sometimes it varies from hour to hour. Like, a lot of times if I'm trying to write one of my more like emo scenes, I do that at night, because for whatever reason, whatever chemicals are swimming through my body, I can access that deeper level of emotion, and it comes on the page easier than if I try to do it in the morning after I've just worked out or just dropped the kids off, when I'm like, "Whoa, I'm just gonna get this day going." I don't want to write this little soft, somber, sad, sweet moment. So it varies sometimes by, this may be TMI, but by like time of the month even. I mean, we're also a slave to our hormones, and that affects so much. So is a mixture of muse showing up and just whatever chemicals are flooding my, endorphins, whatever, are flooding my brain at the time. I don't mean like I'm sitting here snorting coke before I write. I just mean like body chemicals,
I've done my fair share of cocaine in my life. It's really good for a little bit, and then it gets really bad really quick.
I can only imagine.
This roadie once said, "It's not a drug problem, mate. It's a money problem." That's what he said. But anyways, I could talk about the muse for hours, and especially with somebody that obviously experiences it. One thing that I do, and I didn't do this until a few years ago. I work out. You work out as well, and I don't do it for vanity. I've accepted the fact that I'm a middle-aged man. No one's fucking looking at it. So, but it feels great to have energy, and it turns out that if you do that little bit of work, you get a shit ton from it. You get far more than you put in, I think.
Yes, same. I agree.
I do. But I do yoga, and I jog periodically as well, and I do some resistance training. The yoga, though, is the absolute bee's knees. I never thought I would. I'm not exactly a yoga kind of guy, but good Lord, it is wonderful. What do you do for your workouts?
I used to do yoga a lot. In fact, I lived in Minnesota for a while, and I used to work at an ad agency as a graphic designer, and there was this yoga studio down the street, and I would go every day during lunch period. And it was great. I kind of come back and be like zenned out. I got away from that though, mostly because I mostly work out, do things that I can do in the house now, work out from home, or run outside. I tend to do high intensity, like interval training. I like that. I get bored quickly with the same workout, so I like something that changes, and I like that like rush, that endorphin rush, or after you've really like put your body through the ringer, or you've broken a good sweat. I like to break a sweat. So, and that's just kind of, like I said, it's kind of like my Prozac.
It works. It works like it. No,
it does.
If you would have asked me 5 years ago what I thought about that, I would have told you were bullshitting me. But it's actually true, and it makes a huge difference. I've gone 2 days now without working out, and I have this little daily practice thing I do, because I don't know if you can tell, I'm a kind of guy that has a hard time focusing. So I
can tell it all.
I've got this little daily practice thing, and I check off basically these are the things I do every fucking day, right? And I know it gives me a little average and a little emoji that says, "You've done great this week," or "You kind of suck, dude." And there's like little emojis that tell the level, and I can already see there's no catching up. I'm not going to get the happy face this week. And a couple days in, like, I feel it, and my voice is affected too. It's like everything works together. Somebody just asked, what is one piece of advice that you would pass on to newer authors that you were told or wish you were told early on in your career?
Ooh, okay. Actually, like I don't even have to think about this one. I know immediately. Because I saw a post in an author group the other day about someone had really been struggling with their book, writing this book. They've been writing it forever, and something that someone told me is just write the book. Like write the book, write the first book, and accept that it may not be a masterpiece. But you have to, for me, I wrote my first book in 500 word increments because I'd never written a book before and I didn't know if I could do it. I'd never been able to finish anything before. I would just putter around with the words and start over, and I never got anywhere. And so when I wrote my first book, I made a commitment to write it from start to finish, to complete it, no matter how long it took me. And it did. It took me 4 or 5 months of intermittent writing, 500 words a day, sometimes 300. And because I think the most important thing is that you need to prove to yourself that you can write a book, so you know you can write a book. And so once I had written a book, I was like, oh, okay, well, I did that, but can I do it again? And as it turned out, I was able to do it again, and this time I was able to do it a little bit faster. So my one piece of advice is don't try to make the first book perfect, just write the fucking book. Just write it.
That's great advice. And you're not the only one I've heard that from, too. It turns out writing books is hard. There's something that we hear in the narration community a lot, especially in the romance community, where when you're starting out as a romance narrator, you read some crap. There's some crap out there, that's what you get in the beginning. It is what it is. And after you read about 50 of those, you're like, fuck, anybody can do this. This is ridiculous. I can't count how many times I've had narrators, because I ran a production company for years. I employed narrators coming in and out of my door. And how many times people, I'm going to write one of these, man. This is ridiculous. This is so easy. Everybody, not a single one of them ever wrote a book. Ever. Not me either. I can't fucking do it.
I mean,
As I
that's
said
the
earlier,
thing about it.
Yeah, well, you guys create something from nothing. It's amazing.
But literally anyone can do it. It's just that most people don't have the persistence to do it all the way through. And then, or people think that you have to get it perfect. I mean, that's the other thing that's been super helpful for me. Just get it out. It does not have to be perfect. That's what editing and going back over the book is for. Just get it out. So anytime you try to make something perfect on the front end, unless you're, doing surgery on someone, when it matters if you do it right the first time. But otherwise, letting yourself spew out garbage has been, I used to not let myself do that. And the second I started just saying, I'm just going to vomit this out and I can always fix it later or I can scrap it later, is when I began to be able to really keep publishing books. So it's super helpful to just give yourself permission to suck. That's fantastic. How about if you're like me and after years you still suck? What do you do? A, that's not true. But B, if you've got that imposter syndrome, which I have the imposter syndrome big time. I'm always convinced that everything that I'm writing is the worst, and that at some point people are going to be like, damn, she's really not that good of a writer. Why do we like her stuff? But the flip side of that is that it also keeps you hungry. And I think one of the most dangerous things in general in life, in any creative endeavor or any job, is getting too comfortable or thinking that you've figured everything out. There's nothing left to learn. I think it's good to stay hungry and to not be convinced that you are at your apex ever, because then you stop trying. Yeah, I wouldn't be doing what I do, and maybe this is true for you. I wouldn't. And by the way, crowd, I'm joking. Of course, I don't suck as bad as I say sometimes. This is what I do. But I wouldn't be still doing this if there wasn't the ability to continue. I will never be a great actor. There are people that are on their deathbeds right now that have tried to be great actors for their entire life, and they probably still didn't quite make it. It's a craft. It's an art. Yeah. You never perfect it. Writing is the same way. You just continue. If it wasn't like that, if there wasn't something to learn every day, I would not keep doing it. There's no doubt. There are things I feel confident in, and maybe you're like this. I have things that I do in my narration work. I come from an audio engineering background.
I'm incredibly confident in that. I know what I'm doing. I can get up in front of 2,000 people and sing you a song or run the entire PA system. I know what I'm doing, and I can make an audiobook sound fucking fantastic. I'm very confident in that. What I'm not confident in is emoting the feelings in a book to a point where I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you're going to feel an emotional impact from how I just performed that piece. So that's what I keep trying to do every fucking day, over and over and over again. Make somebody feel an emotion. But are there things in your writing that you are confident in, that you know there is no imposter syndrome? You know, I fucking got this. This is mine.
It depends on the day. I used to would say yes, that I feel, but you know, again, it varies. Sorry, that was me. It varies, especially when I'm in one of those kind of shitty doldrum periods, and I think that I don't know what I'm doing. I usually feel that pretty confident in my sex scenes. I mean, I feel like I get the physical aspect, the emotional aspect, and that's what I always try to do. I feel like I write a good sex scene most days. I mean, sometimes I don't feel like that, though. I guess what I feel confident in is that in the end, no matter how I get there, I know that I will go back and do something to the best of my ability and try to get those gut shot, what I call the gut shot lines and the gut shot moments into the book, the places where I usually can anticipate where the reader is going to like just be sucked into the feels or the character. I can usually spot those and try to like hammer on them a little bit to take them deeper. I don't know. So yeah, I guess I am confident in my persistence. I'm not going to give up on something and just be like, fuck this book, I'm just going to put it out, you know. No, I'm going to, even if it takes me an extra month to try to figure out, I'm going to try to feel like I did the best that I could with what I had.
Somebody's talking about I'm sorry, I'll never forget the up against a tree scene. Did you write a scene where they had a guy up against the tree?
Yes, that was Want Me. So that's Want Me, yeah.
Now there are people in the crowd going, up against a what? Who? Where? What?
Yeah, so that was Want Me.
Okay. And you remember that scene obviously as well, so it must have been a big...
Yeah, so I originally wrote that, and one of the reasons, I don't know why that book resonated, but one of the reasons that book, I think, did so well, maybe, is that because I originally released it as a serial, and it built up momentum. So I was writing, there's 7 total chapters in that book, but they're each basically short stories, mini novellas. I mean, they're long, 17,000 words. And so I wrote it over a period of 8 months. So I really had time to play with the words and the characters and make sure it's also single point of view, which I love. I know a lot of people don't like it. I love it because you have to view the other character through just this one point of view, and that means there's this other character is always going to be slightly enigmatic, and I think that's what resonated with a lot of people in Want Me. But I mean, Want Me is one of those premises that is old as shit and trite as hell, a bi-awakening between roommates, but for some reason the way the story is told really got to a lot of people, and the characters, I like to think that I got really deep into the characters. That sounds pervy. I got really deep inside them.
Only against a tree. Somebody before I ask this question, I have to say the single point of view, absolutely fucking tits. That is fantastic. Mm-hmm. I, as an actor, love those opportunities. One, it's just a physical aspect. I don't have to do 2 POVs as far as creating unique voices and that sort of thing. I'm not trying to be lazy. It just gets challenging at times. It's like lifting weights kind of deal. But you said a fancy word that I can't say. Enigmatic? Is that how you say? That's a hard word.
Yeah, mysterious.
Exactly. You don't know that character's views entirely. You're only seeing it from one side of it. Therefore, that character becomes more interesting as a result, in my opinion. Now,
I'd agree.
I'm not taking away from the dual POVs. A lot of people like them, and I do too. I do a shit ton of them. But that single POV is like it's like when you're sifting. Here's me sifting through all my work that I got to do. There's a little piece of gold. That's exactly what that is to me. It's such an enjoyable experience. Somebody said something about purple shorts. So we've already talked about the tree incident. Let's talk about the purple shorts. Tell me about that.
Oh, okay. So that was from Try Me, which is the second book in the extracurricular. It goes Want Me, Try Me, and then Show Me. And so there's a character that comes. One of the main characters, Mark, comes to the library wearing these purple shorts, and then which leads to like some shenanigans in the library because he's sitting across from the guy he's interested in, and showing his stuff through the leg of the purple shorts. I have a pretty dirty mind, I guess.
Purple shorts,
purple shorts in public scenes.
Right. There was a guy that I grew up with. It was one of my buddy's dads. We called him Moose. He was a big man. And he had, do you remember the Umbros that they used to make us wear in like high school sports and middle school sports? So all of us had the Umbros, right? So in the 70s, and mind you, I was born in the 70s, like late 70s, so I'm not like that old, but in the 70s, the Umbros were a bit of a different bag. And he had a pair from the 70s. Now, this is like mid-90s when I'm in like my teenage years, and Moose is still wearing this pair of Umbros from the 70s, and they've gotten a little looser over the course of time, and I guess his dropped somewhere around. So he would be sitting on and it would just fucking just hanging, and it's like flex anyways. So that's what I thought of when you were talking about purple shorts. Thought about Moose's orange Umbros, but anyways, we have done an hour, and I could have you on for another hour, so you got to promise to come back, because this has been a great conversation.
I would love to. This was really fun. I like volleying back and forth and hearing your stories as well. It's really cool.
Yeah, 99% of mine are bullshit, so just remember that. I don't know.
I mean, why'd you have to go and ruin it?
I know. That's precisely what I do. I'm an alcoholic. I don't know when to stop. That's all right. So I asked this of all my guests, if you could. I know I've missed some comments in here, so if you could hop in at some point over the course of the next week or so and just respond to some of them.
Yeah, I'll jump in and respond.
Excellent. Now is the easy part, but before we go, you got to tell me what you're working on right now.
I'm working on Rhythm 3. That's the Rhythm of Love series. If you ever wanted to try one of my books, you might try Dedicated. That one might resonate with you a little bit just from some of the things we've discussed today. You'll know probably immediately whether or not it will. And let's see. And then I'm also working on, I do have plans to continue the extracurricular activities series. But I'm too superstitious to say what the title of that book is or when it's going to be out. In the next year, it's going to be out. So that's it. And then some other projects here and there that probably will pop up at some point or may not, just depending on my life.
I like it. I promise you this will be easy. Now all you got to do is wave at the camera and say goodbye.
Thanks so much for having me.